Welcome to Groovy and Grails webinar series from jpassion.com. Today's topic is Groovy Meta-Programming. So let's get started with the presentation. So this is the set of topics that we are going to cover. So we will see what is and why we want to use a meta-programming. And we will see how you can add behavior during runtime using two different schemes, using Expando class and the other one is Expando meta class. And then we will see how we can check a method or property is available on a class. And then we will see how we can do dynamic method invocation. And then we will see meta-programming hooks in Groovy language, especially method missing scheme. This is the scheme that you can actually use to intercept any method call on your program and do the right thing. And lastly, we will talk about domain-specific language, DSL in short. So what is and why we want to use a meta-programming? Sometimes we call meta object protocol. So metaprogramming is the writing of computer programs that write or manipulate other programs as their data. So, by using metaprogramming, you can actually create a new programming method and adding new properties and things like that. So the reason you want to use a metaprogramming is because by using metaprogramming, you can write your program a lot easier. And of course, the readers of your program will actually understand your code better because programming language is going to be more like English language. So metaprogramming feature of Groovy language makes it an excellent domain-specific language, DSL. So again, we'll talk about what DSL is later on in the part of this presentation. So we'll see how we can add behavior by using Expando class. So Expando class is the one that you can actually create an object from, and then you can add properties and behavior. So this is an example. So here I'm actually creating Expando object, and I'm going to actually assign it to dog variable. And then we are adding properties during runtime. So I'm adding name and greeting properties to dog during runtime. And I'm also adding a new behavior called the bark in a form of a closure. I'm using a term behavior because I want to distinguish it from a method. Later on, we actually I'm using both the closure and method interchangeably. So I'm actually adding the closure and assign it to bark property, and then I can call bark like this. So by using Expando class, I'm actually creating a new object instance that contains a new methods and new properties during runtime. These are all happening during runtime. All right, so Expando class is for adding new behavior and properties to an object during runtime. How about actually adding new behavior to a class? So this is the way that you can actually do by using Expando meta class. So every Java.lang class has a special meta class property that points to a meta class expand meta class instance. And you can add new methods, and you can add new constructors, and you can add new properties, and you can even add new static methods to this class. And then an object that gets created from that class will have those new methods and constructors and properties and static methods. So you can think of Expando meta class is like a meta class that behaves like Expando, but this is for the class level. However, you can actually add new behavior to an object as well. Okay, so we'll see example of that in a few minutes. So this is the first example. So here we are adding a new behavior to a dog class during runtime. So I define a new class called the dog, and then I am going to use a meta class field of any class. So you can use this meta class for any Java class, for any Groovy class. Then I'm adding a new behavior called the bark, and this is the new behavior. Okay. And then I create an object. Any object that I created from that class, dog class, I can call this new method, a bark. Okay, and then it should work fine. And this is the example number 2. And you can actually add new behavior to existing Java classes, such as a string class. You know that the Java string class is a finite class, so in Java you cannot actually create a child class of string class in Java. However, in Groovy, you can actually add behavior to any class of your choice, including finite class like a string. So here I'm actually adding new capitalized meta method to string, again by using meta class. So I'm basically converting the string to capitalize. The first letter will be capitalized. Okay, so I'm actually basically using this logic to create the capitalized string by using again meta class. So from this point on, any string object that I create should have this capitalized method. So I can use it right here. So I create the string object, and then I can use the capitalize method, and then result of this is going to be capital A and BC. And this one, capital ABC, again, I use the capitalize method, and I should have a result of capital A and BC. This is the third example. So yeah, so this is an example. Instead of actually adding behavior to a class, you are adding a behavior to a specific instance, specific object instance. So in that case, this is like Expando. So here, this is an example that we have seen in previous slide, which we are actually adding a new behavior to a class level. Okay. Now you can add a new behavior to an object. So here, I created a new object called the doc2, and then I'm adding a new behavior to doc2 object instance only. Okay, so I'm actually adding a sing behavior to doc2. Okay, so I can certainly call doc2, and that should work fine. But if I try to call sing method of doc1, this will have missing method exception. Because the doc1 doesn't have this new meta method called the sing. Okay, so in general, you want to extend the class because that actually provides more generalized way of actually extending the behavior. But if you need to extend a particular object instance, you can also actually use meta class for that as well. All right, so let's start our first exercise. So let's go to the hands-on lab here. And okay, so this is the adding new properties and new behavior using Expando object. So I'm going to copy this code. And this is the same code that you have seen. And then execute it. And as expected, so here basically I can call the bark method, and bark method will access the name field and greeting field, and you should say my dog says hello. Okay, so name is my dog and greeting is hello. Okay, so if I say my dog 2, hello dog 2, and of course this should work as expected. All right, so this is the usage of Expando class. And this one is adding a new behavior to doc class using meta class. So we are actually adding a behavior at the class level. So this is the same code that we have seen in the slide. So I'm going to just copy this code. And then execute. Okay, so here I'm actually creating a new object, and then it should work fine. So if I create a new object, so I'm going to say var2 XYZ, and I can create a new doc, and then I can call XYZ and bark and sanction, and then you should bark my name. Okay, what sanction is barking. All right, so this is an example of the extending class. Okay, now as I said before, you can so let's hear so the next example is adding a new behavior to a string class. Okay, so as I said before, you can extend any class in Groovy. So first of all, let's see what string class has, what methods a string class has. So here I'm gonna just copy this code, and we'll see all the meta method that string class has. Okay. So you can see it has equals and get class, hash method, and all that stuff. Okay. Now we are going to add capitalize method as we have seen here. So here we are going to add my capitalized method to string class. Okay, so we added new meta method called the my capitalized to string class using meta class field. Okay, and of course this should work fine. So let's try to the execute it, and of course it should work fine. Now we are going to see whether that those my capitalized method has been added or not. So I'm going to actually try to see all the meta methods of the string class again, and then execute it. Now you can see I'm seeing two instances of my capitalized method. Okay. The reason you see two instances of this one is because one, is receiving no argument, and the other one is receiving an argument. Okay. All right. So that's what we have seen. Now, in addition to adding property and the behavior, you can also add a behavior to a constructor. So this is a case that you are adding a new constructor to dog class. Okay, so let's copy this code. So what I have done here is we are adding a new constructor that takes the dog's name, and basically, we are creating one. Okay, you're creating a new instance. Okay, so here basically I can actually create I can create an instance, and then I can actually see the name property. Okay, so this is an example that you can actually add a new constructor. Okay, so far you can actually we have seen you can add properties and the behavior, I call method sometimes, and then constructor. You can also add static methods. So this is a case that I'm actually adding a static method. The way that you can add a static method is meta class and dot static bark. Okay, so by having it as a static method, you don't have to create an object instance. Instead, you can just use the class method class, and then you can call the method just like in Java. Okay, so let's try this. And it should work fine. Okay, so basically I'm actually calling static method called bark by just using class. Okay, just like in Java. All right, so the last example is adding a new behavior to specific instance. Okay, so here let's actually do this. Again, this is the similar code that we have seen, exactly the same code actually in the slide. Okay, so again, this is the case that we are adding a method to behavior to a class level, so that should work fine. Okay, however, I created a new dog instance, and then I'm adding a sing behavior to dog2 instance only. Okay, so I should be able to call dog2 sing, and that should work fine. So let's run this one. So dog2 is singing. However, if I try to let dog1 to sing, that should fail because dog1 instance doesn't have the sing behavior. Okay, because I have not added the sing behavior to dog1. Okay, the only object instance that we see that contains the new sing method is dog2. So let's actually try to run it, and you're going to see this missing method exception when this is called. Okay. All right, so that is Expando and meta class. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, exercise 2, the topic 2. So you can check method and property availability using some method in the meta object protocol interface. Okay, so there are two things that we're going to actually use. One is response to. So response to method is taking an object instance and the method name, and it will return an array of all method name, the meta method. If there is null, if there is none, then it will return the null array. Okay, so it just returns the array of meta method object. Okay, you can use respond to. So in this case, if you happen to have a multiple the methods, however, with the same name, but with a different, let's say, the argument type, they will return all of those because we are just checking the method name. However, if you want to actually get all meta methods, all the method that actually contains the method name and also a particular set of argument types, then you can also specify the argument types. In this case, it will return probably just one, okay? Because there should be only one method with a particular set of arguments, okay? So this is response 2. Basically, you're checking whether a particular class, has a method, okay? You can also check whether a particular object or class, the class of an object has a property, okay? So you can specify that particular object and you can specify the name of the property and it will actually return a meta property. If it doesn't have a property of this property name, it will return null. All right, so let's do exercise 2. So we are basically exercising response 2 and has property meta methods, okay? All right, so in this case, let's see the code. I'm going to actually copy this code and then run it, and then we will take a look at the code. And run it, and it will just work fine. All right, so here we created a string object, okay? And we want to see whether the string object has my capitalized method or not. It should have it because we have added this my capitalized method to string class in previous exercise 1. So it should return 1, okay? So this should true, and then it should display hello world. So that's the reason it's actually displaying hello world here, okay? So the it basically capitalize it, right? So if I say so XYZ, if I say XYZ, then it should actually have capital X and YZ and things like that. So you can see string object responds to my capitalized meta method because it has it, okay? Next one is we are now adding a new meta method called my method 2. So we are using again meta method, meta class, and then we are adding my method 2, and this is a closure object. Okay, so you're basically adding a new behavior to the string object. So as I said before, I'm sometimes using a term method or behavior. Those are the same thing. Okay. Later on, you will see actually a little bit of difference between a method and property. In fact, whenever you actually add this one, it's actually adding as a property, okay, instead of a method. So that's the reason I'm actually, sometimes be careful in terms of using a terminology method in this case. But, for now, you can think of method as behavior. Behavior is the same thing. All right, now we should be able to check whether my method 2 is now it's as part of the strings meta methods or not by using response 2. Again, it should return true, okay? So I can actually call my method 2 and it should return println, and it's just print things out. I'm new method to string class. That's what you should see here, okay? And then, so again, here I'm actually using a different syntax. So, instead of just using an object instance and then call response 2, what you can do is you can call string, meta class, and response 2. In that case, you have to specify particular object instance, and then your new method name here. Okay. So this is the same thing as this. So it's a little bit different syntax. Okay. All right. Here we are going to display methods and properties of a dog object. Okay, so here I'm actually distinguishing a method and a closure. And so let's actually run this guy, and then I'll explain it. All right, so basically we define a dog class, and then we create a dog object and assign into my dog1 variable, and then we display all methods of it, and then we display all properties. Now let's take a look at the what gets the added in. So I'm gonna actually use the lab documentation to explain it. Okay. So basically what you see is that the method that I added is added to my doc method, and closure is added to is a property properties. Okay, so let's see this. So here you see a dog, right? And dog has a property, so that's a property, and this is a method. And last week, we actually see the difference between a method and closure, right? Okay, so this is the way that I define my dog method as a method, and this is the way that I define my dog closure as a closure. Okay, so